What if the most sacred object in human history had been found? We're talking about the Ark of the Covenant, God's throne among men, the place where heaven touched earth, the center of divine presence. And now, according to Orthodox rabbis, it might be hidden in Jerusalem, right beneath the Temple Mount. This information didn't come from tabloids or conspiracy theories. It's backed by Jewish scholars and archaeologists who have dedicated their lives to uncovering this ancient mystery. One of them even stated, "If we were allowed to dig there, we would reach the chamber where the Ark has rested since the days of King Josiah, but we've been stopped." Why is this being kept secret? Why is the subject so sensitive that no one dares to excavate the very site where all evidence suggests the Ark lies? The answer goes beyond archaeology, beyond history, beyond politics. This is spiritual, this is prophetic, and it could change everything. Since its mysterious disappearance over 2,000 years ago, the Ark of the Covenant has been surrounded by legends, debates, speculation, and silence. A silence that screams. Because among all the sacred objects of the Old Testament, only the Ark vanished without a trace. Not even the Babylonians, who meticulously documented everything they looted, mentioned the Ark in their records. Why? Some say it was hidden by priests before the invasion. Others believe the prophet Jeremiah took it to a secret cave on Mount Nebo. Still others claim it was taken to Ethiopia. And in Revelation 11, some even believe the Ark was taken up into heaven, awaiting the end times. But what few know, and what you're about to discover, is that prominent Jewish rabbis claim they know exactly where the Ark is, and its location is so sensitive that, if confirmed, it could trigger a prophetic chain of events like the world has never seen. If you're a Christian, this matters to you. If you believe in the scriptures, this video is for you because the Ark isn't just an artifact. It represents the eternal covenant between God and his people, the very center of true worship, the place where mercy met judgment. And if it reappears, to many Jews it will be the sign that the Messiah is at the door. But for us Christians, it might also mark the beginning of a dangerous time. The moment when the man of sin sits in the temple, pretending to be God. As Paul warned in 2 Thessalonians, he opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, and he will sit in the temple of God proclaiming himself to be God. So the real question isn't just, where is the Ark? It's, if it's revealed, who will sit on that throne? In this video, we'll dive deep into this ancient mystery. You'll discover the 4 leading theories about the Ark's whereabouts, understand why the location can't be excavated today, and most importantly, why this has everything to do with the days we're living in. But before we continue, tell me, where are you watching this video from? Comment below. Let's spread God's word to more people around the world. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video so more people can awaken to the truth. If you grew up watching Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, you probably picture the Ark of the Covenant as a Hollywood artifact, covered in gold, hidden in a trap-filled chamber, and holding supernatural power capable of wiping out entire armies. In fiction, the Ark was the ultimate treasure, pursued by archaeologists, Nazis, and adventurers alike. But the truth, the biblical truth, is that the Ark of the Covenant was far more than a sacred artifact. It was the most direct point of contact between the Creator and humanity. This was no decorative chest. It was the only object in the tabernacle whose design was not left to human creativity. It was detailed directly by God to Moses on Mount Sinai, as we read in Exodus chapter 25. Have them make an ark of acacia wood, overlay it with pure gold, inside and out. Every measurement, every material, every detail held deep spiritual meaning. The incorruptible acacia wood symbolized the uncorrupted nature of Christ. The pure gold represented the glory of God. And above the ark rested the mercy seat, a solid gold cover where 2 cherubim stood with outstretched wings in reverence. But what made the ark truly extraordinary wasn't what people could see on the outside. It was what happened inside. According to Hebrews 9:4, the ark contained 3 sacred items, each a silent witness to the faithfulness and character of God. The tablets of the law, written by the very finger of God, they symbolize the moral covenant and God's uncompromising holiness. The jar of manna, the bread from heaven that sustained Israel in the desert, symbolizing divine provision. Aaron's staff that budded, a dead piece of wood brought back to life, a sign of supernatural spiritual authority. These weren't just ancient relics. They told a living story, the story of a covenant between a holy God and a people he called his own. And above those objects, in the space between the cherubim, God spoke. Yes, literally spoke. In Exodus 25:22 it says, "There I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat, I will speak with you about all I command for the Israelites." It was there that the glory of God descended. This was no metaphor. It was real, audible, tangible presence. The ark was truly the throne of God on earth, and that's why as Israel journeyed through the wilderness, the ark went ahead of them. It guided the steps of the nation. It wasn't carried like some religious totem. It was the living direction of God. In Numbers 10, Moses would cry out as the ark moved, "Rise up, O Lord, may your enemies be scattered." The ark marched ahead of the army, and wherever it was, walls like Jericho fell, without a single sword being lifted. In the days of King David, when he decided to bring the ark back to Jerusalem, it wasn't a political gesture, it was a spiritual hunger. David knew no human throne could be established while God's throne was absent. He danced with all his might before the ark, uncaring of the judgmental eyes around him, because he knew that this wooden, gold-covered object was so much more than a symbol. It was the living assurance that God was with his people. And on the day the ark was brought into Solomon's temple, something happened that was never repeated again in history. And the glory of the Lord filled the temple, and the priests could not stand to minister because of it. 1 Kings 8:11. In that moment, heaven invaded earth with such power that men could not even remain standing. The ark was the bridge between the invisible and the visible, the point where eternity touched time, where justice met mercy. But as time passed, the people strayed from God. Worship became hollow ritual, the covenant was neglected, and in 586 BC Jerusalem fell, the temple was destroyed, and the ark disappeared. But something strange happened. The Babylonians, known for meticulously recording all the sacred items they plundered, listed everything they took from the temple, except one, the Ark of the Covenant. It wasn't destroyed, it wasn't taken, it simply vanished. And that's why over 2,500 years later, its absence still echoes with a spiritual question that has never been answered. Where is the throne of God? This isn't just historical curiosity. This is a spiritual matter, because the glory never returned in the same way, not in the Second Temple, not afterward. And now, as some rabbis claim the ark is still there, hidden beneath Jerusalem, maybe what's at stake isn't just an archaeological breakthrough, but the next step in God's prophetic plan for humanity. Before we continue, if this message is resonating with you and has blessed you in any way, consider supporting our work with a super thanks. It's that heart-shaped button with the $ just below this video. Any amount helps, but just by watching this far you're already supporting us so much. Let's keep going. It wasn't a museum piece, nor was it a war talisman. The Ark of the Covenant was the throne of God among men, the only structure on earth that the Creator himself chose to inhabit physically. Unlike any other biblical object, the Ark was designed by God himself. It wasn't Moses who imagined it, nor Bezalel, the skilled craftsman of the tabernacle. The command came from above. In Exodus 25, God gives specific instructions. Have them make an ark of acacia wood, and overlay it with pure gold both inside and out. The gold symbolized his glory, the acacia wood his incorruptibility. But it wasn't beauty that made it holy. It was the real and active presence of God dwelling there. The most important place on earth at that time wasn't a palace or any earthly throne. It was the space between two cherubim, the very place where God spoke with Moses, as the Lord himself declared, "And from there I will speak with you about all I command." Exodus 25:22. According to theologian and archaeologist Randall Price, one of the foremost scholars of biblical archaeology in our time, the Ark was the spiritual axis of Israel. It represented the living covenant between God and his people, and its absence signifies more than a physical disappearance. It shows a rupture in divine communion. As confirmed in Hebrews 9:4, the ark contained 3 sacred witnesses: the tablets of the law, God's voice written in stone; a jar of manna, the supernatural provision from the wilderness; Aaron's staff that budded, a sign of legitimate priesthood and spiritual authority. These were not relics. They were living testimonies of God's faithfulness and sovereignty. Rabbi Yehuda Levi, in an article published in the Journal of Temple Studies, explained that the Shekinah, the visible presence of God, manifested physically between the cherubim of the ark, and the priests of the temple knew they weren't standing before a symbol, but before a spiritual reality. For 40 years in the wilderness, the ark went ahead of the people, showing them the way. In battles, it was carried by the priests, and its presence determined the outcome. In Joshua 6, the walls of Jericho fell at the sound of trumpets, not because of military strategy, but because of obedience to God's presence, represented by the ark. Later, King David understood something that few leaders have ever grasped. No legitimate human government can stand without the divine presence as its foundation. That's why he decided to bring the ark back to Jerusalem, not with armies, but with praise, dancing, and total surrender. In 2 Samuel 6:14, we read that David danced with all his might before the ark, wearing a linen ephod, laying down his crown to exalt the true king. Under Solomon's reign, the ark was finally installed in the temple, and on that day, the unthinkable happened. And the priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled the house. 1 Kings 8:11. It wasn't just a ceremony, it was heaven invading earth. The presence of God was so intense, not even the ministers could stand. It was there and between the cherubim above the mercy seat that eternity touched time. This spiritual reality did not go unnoticed by Jewish historians and scholars. Flavius Josephus, in Jewish Antiquities, described the ark as the most sacred symbol of Judaism and wrote with sorrow about its absence in the Second Temple. And speaking of the Second Temple, when the Jews returned from exile in Babylon and rebuilt the sanctuary, something was different. The structure stood, the rituals resumed, but something essential was missing. The Talmud, in Tractat Yoma 21b, records that the Second Temple lacked 5 fundamental elements, including the Ark of the Covenant and the Shekinah, the visible presence of God. In other words, the structure existed, but the throne of God was absent. Nahum Sana, one of the most respected modern Hebrew scholars, stated in his commentary on the tabernacle, the ark was not merely a functional object, it was the center of divine revelation. Its absence represented the silence of God, and indeed, silence settled in. The ark vanished from the biblical record after 586 BC. It wasn't taken to Babylon. It wasn't mentioned among the items plundered. It simply disappeared. Over the centuries, this silence gave rise to speculation, legends, oral traditions, and above all, hope. Hope that, in the appointed time, God's throne would return to its rightful place. But until that happens, one pressing question remains. Why did God allow his throne to vanish, and what does that mean for us today? Think about it. The Bible speaks with stunning precision about so many details, about the temple, the sacred utensils, the wars, the kings. But when it comes to the Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred object in Israel's history, the silence is nearly total. Not a single verse clearly states what happened to it after the Babylonian invasion. No inventory lists it as plunder. No passage tells us where it might be now. It's unsettling, isn't it? And it's not just you who feels that void. Theologians, rabbis, archaeologists, and scholars throughout the centuries have devoted their lives to answering one single question. Where is the Ark of the Covenant? Today, based on scripture, Jewish tradition, and real archaeological investigations, we'll explore the 4 most widely accepted and debated theories in the world, including testimonies from rabbis who claim to know where the Ark is right now. Theory 1. The Ark is hidden beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. This may be the oldest, most revered, and at the same time most dangerous theory to confirm. According to rabbinic tradition preserved in the Talmud and Mishnah, the Ark was hidden by the priests before the destruction of the First Temple, around 586 BC, in sealed underground chambers within Mount Moriah itself. The Mishnah in Shekelim 6:1 mentions the existence of secret compartments within the temple complex, designed to store sacred objects in times of crisis. Many scholars believe that one of these chambers housed the Ark of the Covenant, in obedience to an order given during the reign of King Josiah, as recorded in 2 Chronicles 35:3. "Put the sacred ark in the house that Solomon son of David, king of Israel, built." According to Rabbi Menachem Mendel Kasher, this was not an ordinary instruction. It was a coded directive to remove and protect the ark. More recently, in 1992, Rabbi Yehuda Getz, who served as the keeper of the Western Wall for nearly 30 years, told the Jerusalem Report that during unofficial excavations in the tunnels near the wall, his team reached a wall that directly bordered the chamber believed to contain the ark. If we had broken through it, we would have reached it. But we were stopped. According to him, the obstruction was both political and spiritual. Today, the Temple Mount is under Islamic administration, and any attempt to excavate could spark a global conflict. Leon Rittmeyer, an archaeologist specialized in temple topography, stated in Biblical Archaeology Review that biblical measurements point precisely to a location beneath the dome of the rock, the very spot where the ark is believed to have originally rested, and possibly still does. But if it is truly there, buried under layers of history and religious tension, what is God waiting for before revealing it? Theory 2. The ark was taken to Ethiopia. This is the most popular theory outside of Orthodox Judaism, especially among African Christians and scholars of Ethiopian tradition. According to the ancient text, Kebra Nagast, a collection of royal Ethiopian traditions, the Ark of the Covenant was taken to Ethiopia by Menelik I, the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. The account claims that, with God's blessing, Menelik received the Ark and transported it to Aksum, the ancient Ethiopian capital. Since then, it is said to have been kept in the Church of St. Mary of Zion, where only one guardian monk is allowed to see it, and he can never leave the site. This tradition is so strong that every Ethiopian Orthodox church keeps a replica of the Ark, known as a tablet, on its altar. For them, the Ark was never lost. It remains alive and active, a living testimony of God's covenant with Africa. In 1992, journalist Graham Hancock, author of the bestseller The Sign and the Seal, interviewed monks, guardians, and local residents. Although he never saw the Ark himself, he stated that the unshakable faith of the people is compelling evidence that something sacred is indeed being guarded. From a prophetic standpoint, many Ethiopians believe the Ark will one day return to Jerusalem when the Messiah comes, playing a vital role in the spiritual restoration of the last days. Theory 3. The Ark was hidden by Jeremiah on Mount Nebo. This theory is recorded in a historically significant apocryphal text, 2 Maccabees 2:4-8. The passage tells that before the destruction of Jerusalem, the prophet Jeremiah was instructed by God to hide the Ark of the Covenant, the altar of incense, and the tabernacle itself in a cave on Mount Nebo, the same mountain where Moses saw the promised land before he died. This place will remain unknown until God gathers his people together again and shows them mercy. 2 Maccabees 2:7. Although the books of the Maccabees are not part of the traditional Hebrew canon, they are considered sacred by Jews of the diaspora and by Catholic and Orthodox Christians, and have been referenced by early church fathers such as Eusebius, Origen, and Augustine. Mount Nebo, located in present-day Jordan, remains a holy site to this day, protected by Franciscan monks. Several archaeological expeditions were conducted throughout the 20th century, but none were authorized to search specifically for the Ark due to the immense religious and diplomatic impact such a discovery would bring. This theory carries profound prophetic weight. The Ark was not lost. It was intentionally hidden, and it will only be revealed in the time of final restoration. Theory 4. The Ark was taken to heaven. This theory is based directly on Scripture in Revelation 11:19. Then God's temple in heaven was opened, and the Ark of his covenant was seen within his temple. There came flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, an earthquake, and heavy hail. Many scholars believe that John, the author of Revelation, was not seeing a symbolic representation, but the original Ark itself, taken up into heaven by God. This vision is reinforced by Hebrews 8:5, which states that everything built on earth was merely a shadow of heavenly realities. In other words, the earthly Ark was a copy of a superior and eternal reality. Louis Berkhoff, a renowned Reformed theologian, affirms in his systematic theology that the heavenly temple is not a poetic metaphor, but a real spiritual dimension where the eternal elements of worship are preserved. This view is also echoed by Jewish mystical and apocalyptic traditions, which hold that objects too holy for the corruption of this world have been kept in heaven, awaiting the appointed time. If the Ark was indeed taken to heaven, it means that God's throne was removed from earth as a sign of judgment, and that it will return only with the glorious manifestation of the Messiah. Each of these theories carries centuries of study, faith, and expectation. But they all converge on one essential truth. The ark did not disappear by accident. It was removed, sealed, and preserved, because its reappearance will be a sign that something eternal is about to unfold. And the question that must now be asked is, if the ark reappears, who will dare to sit in the place where God once dwelled? That question might seem like nothing more than a spiritual provocation, but in truth, it strikes directly at the heart of biblical prophecy about the end times. Today in Jerusalem, a growing movement is calling for the restoration of temple worship. The Temple Institute, an organization officially recognized in Israel, has already recreated the sacred utensils described in Exodus and Leviticus: the golden menorah, the table of showbread, the priestly garments, and even the altar of sacrifice. They have also trained descendants of the priestly lineage, the Kohanim, based on ancient genealogical records, so they can serve in the temple as soon as it is rebuilt. But there's one problem no one has been able to solve: the Ark of the Covenant. Without it, the Holy of Holies, the most sacred place in the temple, would stand empty. And that raises an extremely serious prophetic question. Is it possible to rebuild the temple without the Ark? For some rabbis, the answer is yes. In a 2019 interview, Rabbi Chaim Richman, director of the Temple Institute, stated, "We can rebuild the temple and resume the service without the Ark. We already did so during the Second Temple, but if God chooses to reveal it, we will know that the Messiah is near." That statement is profound because it presents two possibilities. The temple will be rebuilt without the Ark, merely as a religious structure, or the Ark will be revealed, and with it a powerful eschatological sign, the coming of the Messiah. But what if it's the wrong Messiah? In 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4, the Apostle Paul warns about a man who will rise in opposition to God. He will oppose and exalt himself above all that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. This means the temple may be rebuilt, but not to glorify God. It may become the stage for the manifestation of the Antichrist, who will deceive many, including the religious, by sitting on a throne that does not belong to him. That is the great danger. The reappearance of the Ark could be interpreted by many as confirmation that God has returned to dwell among men. But the Bible teaches us that God's true dwelling is no longer made with human hands. Do you not know that you are God's temple and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? 1 Corinthians 3:16. Yes, God may allow the temple to be rebuilt. He may allow the Ark to be found, but that doesn't mean he approves of everything that will take place there. The great spiritual dilemma of our time is this: if the Ark is revealed, the eyes of the world will turn to Jerusalem. But who will be enthroned there? The true king or the prophesied impostor? This tension between redemption and deception is central to biblical eschatology, because the enemy will not come in a demonic appearance. He will come disguised as light. He will sit where God once sat. He will claim for himself a throne that belongs to the Lord alone. And that is why the reappearance of the Ark is not just an archaeological event. It is a sign that the spiritual realm is in motion, that the prophetic clock is accelerating, and that we are closer to the end than we realize. Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri, one of the most influential voices in modern Judaism, wrote in his personal notes, "When the Ark of the Covenant is revealed, they will know that the Messiah is at the door." But he never said which Messiah, and that's where the real danger lies. Everything we've discussed, the disappearance of the Ark, the theories about its location, the plans to rebuild the temple, leads us to one inevitable conclusion. The Ark of the Covenant is not a legend. It is a living symbol of something that is still to come. And when that day arrives, the world will stop and watch. Despite all the mystery, hidden excavations, rabbinic testimonies, and archaeological hints, no one truly knows where the Ark of the Covenant is. And perhaps that's exactly how God intended it to be. He has not lost control, he never does. If the Ark has remained hidden for over 2 millennia, it's because the appointed time for its revelation has not yet come. But that doesn't mean we should remain indifferent. On the contrary, everything we've seen so far, the plans for the Third Temple, the spiritual movement in Israel, the rise of religious deception, are signs that the stage is being set. And while many wonder whether the Ark still exists, God is asking a far more important question: is there room for my throne in your heart? Yes, the Ark once represented God's presence among his people, but today, through the work of Christ, we are the temple, It is within us that the Spirit dwells, and it is within our hearts that the throne of God must be established, with reverence, fear, holiness, and truth. The true temple has already been built, not by human hands but by the blood of the Lamb. Jesus said, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." He was speaking of himself. He is the place where heaven meets earth. He is the true mercy seat. He is the revealed presence of God. That's why before searching for the ark in mountains, caves, or tunnels, we must search for it in the deepest place of all, the heart. Because when it appears, if it appears, it may already be too late to choose which side we stand on. If this message spoke to you, like this video, share it with someone who needs to understand the times we're living in, and subscribe to the channel. In the coming videos, we'll continue to uncover the prophetic landscape of the last days, always through the lens of God's Word. And remember, the throne of God has never been lost. It is exactly where it has always been, waiting for a heart that will receive Him as King.